I've been thinking recently on the topic of transactional love and, in general, also transactional relationships, because there are quite some leading or popular voices that, um, they people who speak that, uh, that love is all full of conditions. And I've been watching some podcasts, and thinking myself that, yes, so it's true. Love is full of conditions. And how do we figure out this um, problem to ourselves? Maybe not a problem, but definitely a question to many people, because it's places before us the kind of indignation of moral indignation, maybe even with fairness, that perhaps for some oftentimes comes with you know uh, desire to pity yourself, uh, or just the feeling of being small and weak, um, and the fear also of missing out, and all other sorts of fears and emotions as well. So let's try to see, to talk about it and to see what can we make of it. And so again, what will I talk about? I will talk about, let's start this here, this board. I'll talk about transactional relationships. Transaction. Um, and let's maybe add love as transaction. Um, because love not only love not only in a sense of romantic love in any other way, also love as the love to a neighbor, a love to people in general. And so we notice we notice its transactional nature when we understand that there are some sorts of conditions under which what is called love becomes possible. So we need also to maybe expand on what is love, or what can we understand by it. And a lot of what we can understand by it is in some way um, um, mindful mindful attitude towards another side, right? So you consider the interests of the other side, like treat your neighbor as yourself, right? So you take into the consideration the other person, uh, his interests, his value, his desires, his needs, etc. So you take him as in consideration, and you're not only acting now out of your own interest. And on a general view, maybe that can be called treating someone with love, but maybe it's also not enough. Maybe we also would add here something like um, intention. Maybe the uh, the intention or intimacy, maybe the sense of interpersonal closeness. Yes, closeness, or kindness, right? Um, yes, and of course, this would slightly. differ in the kind of love that we mean, but in general, we have the consideration of the other person and his interest in mind. But maybe it would be even better to add his well-being. So not only his interest, because we usually would not consider love as just satisfying the other person's needs or desires, right? But it's kind of acting for his best, so desiring his well-being, desiring good for him, and even if not the one he thinks uh, he needs or wants. So we're acting in consideration of his well-being. So, okay. And when we now defined love in this way, we can ask the question, um, if love considers the other person as itself, like uh, desire his well-being as you want yours, desire the best for him as you would desire for yourself, love your neighbor as yourself. This is a golden rule, and if we would define love something as this, we would need to ask ourselves, well, then what does make it conditional? What conditions should be there if it's in intention that tension, if it's the intention that enables the love? um Now this, yes, you can say that, sort of, but now when we will shift it to a romantic relationship, it starts to transform, to change. Because now you surely would notice that, well, there are some attributes that attract people. They make them, they attract their attention. They, and well, when you focus your attention, you literally dismiss all the other points you could look at. So it centers the attention. Already, this is kind of, the precondition for something, some connection, some relationships to form. Uh, and then it's also, not only it grabs attention, it's also kind of uh, raises the likelihood of the other person being attracted to you. If you have a good physical shape, if you're well spoken, if you're well dressed, and um, if you're, let's say, if your confidence and many other factors that influence how people would perceive you, and would they perceive you positively or negatively, and also, of course, because of that, um, the continuous relationship with them, and their attitudes to you. And so you could say, well, love is conditional, because for love to happen, first someone needs to look at me and to notice me. Then someone needs to be willing to approach me and to have the connection with me, willing to have the desire. And this goes even before the conscious awareness that this person is interesting. This person has, great and deep personality, or knowing his story and spending time with him. Even before that, even before your love to the person, you first need to be attracted. Your attention needs to be attracted. And so that alone makes many people to say that, well, love is conditional, because for love to happen, you first need to all these attributes to attract people, to make them want to be connected to you or anyhow, and especially to choose you over others. If it's, for this female to choose you over all the other males, what should be there in you for her to sacrifice all the other choices? So right, and thinking like that, you of course would suggest that, well, some attributes separate me and kind of raise me on the level of the others, and through them I win the competition. And through these conditions, through these things, I win the competition and am loved because I win. And that is a sort of transactional understanding of love. And so we still just touch on how some people view love, but let's tackle that down. Let's discuss it. Um, the problem for me with this view of love has been just our in desire of other people um, to actually our questioning why should uh, love be transactional, or our sort of indignation with that. So it's interesting for me, where does that come from? And one of the uh, answers that thought of is that people don't want to be a means for others. Um, because when I was listening to people talking about transactional love and conditional love, I was thinking, actually, they say it as if it wasn't the unpleasant reality. So as if it is how it is, but it's in a sort of way wrong, or it's they say that it's accept the reality, this is how it is. Know that it's, maybe they even some of would say that it's not right or wrong, that's just how it is. But then still they kind of go from that negative perspective of the conditional love. And so I thought that maybe one of the reasons is that people don't want love to be conditional or transactional, trade based, love to be like a business. And I thought to myself, why don't we want love to be like a trade? What problem do we have with this? What problem do we have with this? Why is it bad for relationships to be a trade? And then I thought that, well, because those kind of relationships cannot be secure. Because trade-based relationships are dangerous because each party considers its own side, and it's actually doesn't love. It's inconsiderate, really, of the interest of the other person and his well-being. It's considerate of his own well-being, and this is the problem that we instinctively feel. And for this problem, when someone tells us, well, this is conditional always, just get used to that. Just we still feel a sort of indignation. This is the sort of reality, but women are still cruel. you know um, because and this indignation has the reason, and the reason for that, because we don't want to be treated as a mean to someone else's ends. We don't want to be used, we want to be accepted, and we want to be recognized for who we are. We want our needs to be, our well-being to be recognized, our interests to be recognized and cherished and cared for in the same way as the other person cares for himself. Now, what is actually also happens when people emphasize and their neurons mirror each other, they actually do on a biological level desire what the other person desires, and they do on a biological level actually um stress when the person they love stresses. And when people emphasize actually, they mirror the neurons of the other person, so in a way that they actually do feel these exact emotions the other person feels. This becomes their own. The problems of the other person becomes their problems, and we understand them. Or most people don't know what happens in the processes that happen in our brain regions in our body at the moment. But we understand it on a instinctive level that the difference between other person actually uh, understanding us, emphasizing and being considerate of us, versus when the other person does not emphasize. He is concerned of his own ends. He's concerned with himself. He doesn't mirrors our feelings, emotions, our mm, just our state. He's disconnected from us. And we notice the difference and we can tell it, and that's where we have this indignation with reality. Why is love conditional? Why this well, female needs men to be taller, and many men kind of state it as a fact, as reality, but deep inside they have this indignation, and it comes from not, even if they are tall, let's say, but it comes from in desire to be viewed to the other person just as the mean, not the end. And you understand that you are not only your hate, you're much more than that. And the only way for someone not to pick you because of your hate is if you're not being recognized for who you are. Perhaps you're being just used to suit someone else's expectations. Fair enough. And um right now, I want to speak more about security. So I mentioned that we don't want trade. We The problem with trade relationships to be a trade is that it can be fully secure, because when we will be vulnerable, the other person can use our vulnerability against us. When we won't be able to provide him with something, the other party will just break the deal. Okay, so relationships that are based on a deal get broken as soon as as soon as the deal is broken. And now, these how they kind of feels insecure, not secure. Say, okay, so not secure, not and if they can be secure, how can there be how can there be trust developed? How can they be trustful? um how can they provide for openness, sincerity, if parties constantly worry for just keeping the deal and the contract and being needed, actually, like providing providing, or it will be broken. And then uh, this is an important part, is that uh, not only when you break the deal, but whenever you become not useful, or yes, you under deliver, or you become you still, perhaps you still deliver, but the trade-based relationships that are self-predicated uh allow for the other party to switch to the better alternative, better option at its convenience. So if I have the partner who provides me with something, but the only thing I need this partner for is for me to satisfy some of my needs as a mean to my own ends, then whenever I would find someone who satisfies it better, I would just replace my partner. And this is not only insecure, this is terrible for the life commitment, the biggest investment that you make. So that's why people who are ready for serious relationships and desire trustworthiness and openness and sincerity in relationships um, would not want it to be based, would not want it to be self predicated. I give you something and you give me that. So I need you to receive something. And I do believe that, well, um, perhaps unless race in a unfavorable environment with a negative experience, being used, manipulated, etc., maybe some sort of also health diseases, um, or disorders. um, I do believe that people in general do want to be acknowledged and valued, and at the intrinsic value. And so that's where the problem with conditional love. Now, mm, now, what is next question that we can raise is that, well, but, so if we said that trade-based relationships have a deal, but don't don't any relationship have a deal? Isn't marriage a contract? Isn't committed relationship is a contract? So how does it make a difference? And is there actually love without any conditions? Because if it would be, would it mean that no matter what the other person does, I still love him for who he is? So how to deal with this still existing problem, that a relationship do seem to be something like exchange? And I want to suggest to you that um, exchange actually is great. uh, Relationship being an exchange and a trade doesn't make it bad to you until you're worried about the limitation of your resources, or you're worried that you won't receive what you want. So let me explain what I mean. You say, well, you just said that to have a trade-based relationships is completely terrible. But I would tell you that there is a difference between trade-based relationships as the self-predicated relationships, selfish relationships, and uh, mutual reciprocation, the mutual trade that desires, where both parties desire to provide for each other. And I actually want to say that, kind of challenge you, saying what love can be without uh, the desire to give and to receive back. Because is it actually love that just continuously gives without the need to receive? Wouldn't it be just the kind of exercise of your power and position wrapped in tenderness, wrapped in uh, maybe virtue? I do think that love not only desires to give, but to answer with uh, the same, to give and to receive. Because I do believe that people desire the kind of love that is not ashamed to sort of kind of express its need, to be sincere about the need. And we do have needs. That's what needs to be acknowledged. um do we hide it? Do we pretend that they are just not there, and so we will just love whatever the other person does? um or we can be honest about it and present it in a way that I know I have this, and this, let's say, uh, needs, and you do too. Now, how can we be mutually beneficial to each other? Because I do think that people who truly love, they do want to be mutually beneficial. They don't want only to give without the receiving anything, because they are not proud, and they are able to acknowledge their need for closeness and intimacy. And they are willing to give because they want the other person to be fulfilled. And when we understand this, that there can be a desire to have a mutual, uh, to be mutually reciprocate, uh, to be mutually beneficial to each other, and that it is actually great, because then you have something to provide the other person with, and the other person has something to provide you with. So you can kind of fulfill each other and complete each other, and complement each other, and you can provide more for each other, because now it's not only you who tries to provide for yourself, but also the other person who knows you the best, your closest person. So not only in romantic love, but generally in love, the exchange in itself is great, unless it's self-predicated, unless it's unfair exchange, or unless it's exchange with a selfish intention. And we do judge in society a selfish intention, because there is no security with in a relationship with a person who cares only for himself. You can't build a relationship, close relationship, committed relationship, um, with the person who cares about himself. It's hard to invest in this relationship, because the person who truly cares about himself, he leaves out the consideration of you, and there is no growth for both of you in relationship, for the relationships themselves. So I think that's what we need to make out of the conditional love. We need to understand there are needs that we have. We have needs. We have biological bodies. We have biological tendencies. We have uh, the um, sexual attraction that is also, let's say, perhaps predicated on this condition. But the exchange um, can be still the love, let's say, under conditions can be still great if there is an intention for the well-being of the other person. There is a consideration of him a, as who he is. He and not him as a mean to you. And or just purely they mean to you, because it's hard to tell when you just consider the person in himself or as they mean to you, because you can't just separate your benefit from the person, kind of from the person, you can't completely separate it. It's hard to understand, well, um uh, do I purely consider him as himself, or do I need him? Even if you, let's say, even if the person is not beneficial to you whatsoever, if you still cling to him, you can say, well, either maybe you love him for himself, or maybe you just um, fear to lose the person. You fear to lose something you invested in deeply. Maybe you do it still for kind of uh, the possibility you have with this person for a better life. Maybe you do it for, so you can't completely detach the person from the benefit, and I don't think it serves the purpose of doing it. But I do think that intentions do matter, and that there can be the selfish intention, there can be the intentions that include your well-being, even if even under the situation of the conditional love. And I want to also emphasize uh, that when we started to, well, I started to kind of define the love uh, in general term, not romantic love. Um, I- we saw that the intention what matters, because the intention, of course, that leads to an action. So you attend the other person well-being, his needs, desires, interests, etc. You attend his well-being, and so you act in kindness. You consider him as yourself, and so you act more gentle. So you treat him as a friend, and so you're being understanding to him. And um, of course, this is intention that leads to action, but if you notice, it requires less conditions. You In this way you can treat actually neighbor, the ugly, the unattractive, small, poor, short, I don't know, anyone. In this way you can treat with love. Your neighbor, your family members, your friends, even your partner. But yeah, so here actually intention matters, and the considerations that leads to of course action, and improved considering mindful action towards the other person, action within his uh, best interests. But again, what changes is that when we bring now romantic love. And why? Because um, I would say that um, it's not always the case that the desire is love as well, and desire plays a strong, and sexual attraction plays a strong role in this what is called love. But sexual attraction is completely uh, self predicated. It's selfish in its core, probably. It's probably purely survival based, if coming from uh, uh, the evolution theory, let's say. Sexual attraction is kind of not that well intended of the other person. I'll open you that. It's intended of itself. What I do look for, and etc. But of course, we can still regulate it consciously with how do we treat that person that we choose sexually, even. So I want to separate, to distinguish here to the sexual desire for someone and the love that we call the kind of love that we want to be uh, selfless and unconditional. It's not necessarily the same thing, and therefore, when you will always, if you will blame women for choosing the tall guy, well, similar or rich man, you can as well blame her for being selfish. You can blame the same way the guy who is choosing the beautiful woman, but he's doing it out of his sexual attraction. That is selfish in its core. And if he would want to choose to act more loving, uh, he could consciously attempt to be more mindful of the other person. Um, but yes, this uh, would require more consideration and perhaps willpower than uh, simply to be attracted. Because a lot of time I do feel like people who talk about this kind of people who just choosing you, they treat you well, they choose, maybe they choose to be your sexual partner, but the fact that they choose you, even the fact that they choose you to be their sexual partner, doesn't mean that they choose you uh, to, due to love. This is obvious, of course, but if it doesn't mean that, then you can't blame them for, it's unreasonable to have this moral indignation, because well, who's told you that they choose you from coming from the moral principles in the first place? They probably choose you selfishly. They probably just been attracted to you physically. Okay, and of course you can still make the case. Well, then life is still unfair to those who lack the conditions, because they don't allow you for people to come to that level where they could be conscious, kind of love them with conscious love, But I want to state that this kind of love that requires a good intention of the other person, um, or to the other person, doesn't require sexual attraction. That's what I want to tell you, that you can love this way anyone, your mother, your neighbor, and your partner. And this is a sort of conscious love, but it's also a decision, of course. Um, but it's comes from treating the other person as yourself, and in the best way you can treat him. This always would be a choice to make the best what you can out of that, from that which you could do just for yourself. So kind of work out not only for yourself but for your mutual good. So elevate what you can have with the other before yourself, and so this would always require the choice. Um, uh, so yeah. Uh, and this is another topic, um, if you have the problem with those who claim that they love you, but they still love the let's say some women, they're like, oh, we love everyone, right? No, it doesn't matter, short, tall, rich, poor, and then they still keep on choosing rich and tall. And so for many guys, they have this moral indignation in them, like, you told us you loved us. But then I want to again to emphasize that you have to understand this sexual attraction that there is, um, that is selfish. And you have this moral indignation not actually because, okay, the good question is, do you have this moral indignation? So where does your moral indignation comes from? Does it comes from the desire to be picked to be sexual partner, or you want to build this loving relationship with someone, or just love someone in a way that is, intending with the best for the other person? No, you just want to be picked as sexual partner. And this is also the selfish intention. It's, in a way, selfish because, of course, you also kind of have a need for closeness, but you kind of dissatisfied because some particular person who you wanted to be exactly that person did not choose you. So if you see the sort of hypocrisy going on, you're being selfish about other person being selfish too. Um, and I think where we can move from that is to realization that there is a lot of selfish tendencies that we have in general, not only to romantic partners, but also to other people. We can, like, we can consider them, we can treat them with hostility. Uh, we can be irritated by them. We can be angry. We can act unreasonably irritated with them. It's true. And oppositely, we can be too nice to some people. We can be good and kind, etc. Not all of it is based on our actual this sort of unconditional love to intend their good being. Um, a lot of it is based just on this instinctive sort of group identity or desire. So lots of it is unconscious and selfish. Um, so, but it doesn't mean that we don't have to make the best of it, or can make the best of it, or are able to stop desiring the kind of love that would be a secure investment, life investment for us, that is not easily broken, uh, when that enables for forgiveness, enables for uh, you being foolish, and you being sincere in your weakness, need, and etc. So yes, this was the discussion about that, and thank you for watching this video.